Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are embarking on, well, a pretty significant exploration.
We certainly are. We're getting into some foundational material for anyone dealing with technology governance.
That's right. We're cracking open the COBIT 2019 Design Guide, specifically the first part, chapters 1, 2, and 3.
Think of it as laying the essential groundwork. The main COBIT framework is huge, obviously.
Right.
But one of its real strengths, maybe the most critical part, is that it explicitly says, one size fits all doesn't cut it for INT governance.
Exactly. It just doesn't work in the real world.
And this guide, particularly these first chapters we're looking at today, they're all about how you actually build a governance system that fits your specific enterprise like a glove.
So our mission here is really to be your guides through this part of the material. We'll help you unpack the key ideas behind designing what the guide calls a tailored information and technology INT governance system.
And we're sticking strictly to these initial chapters, the foundations.
The goal is to make sure you really grasp the core concepts, the basic building blocks COBIT gives you.
And crucially, how your organization's own specifics, its situation, its goals, its problems, how those start to shape the approach.
It's about understanding the why and the initial how of tailoring before you even get to the nitty-gritty steps later on.
Yeah, exactly. It's easy to get lost in these technical guides. They can be dense.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But that's what we're here for, right? To light the way, pull out the key insights, maybe have a few aha moments along the way.
Hopefully.
And that very first big idea right there in chapter 1, the whole reason for this guide is tailoring.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about just taking a standard off the shelf. It's about starting with that solid generic base and then actively adapting it.
The guide calls it designing the governance system for enterprise INT. It's an active design process.
And chapters 1 to 3 are really about getting you ready for that process, understanding the core concepts needed.
And that design, that tailoring, it's essential because every single enterprise is different. Different contexts, different goals, different challenges mean different governance needs.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
Chapter 1, Introduction and Structure.
Yeah.
It sets the scene. What's the main goal here? What's this guide trying to help people do?
Fundamentally, the guide aims to give enterprises the method, the understanding needed to design a tailored governance system, specifically for their INT.
Right.
It acknowledges the COBIT core model is the universal starting point, but using it effectively means adapting it. It's not optional, really.
And that word tailored is doing a lot of work there. It implies a specific process. How does the guide actually define this tailoring?
It defines it as essentially starting with that COBIT core model, the generic foundation, and then making deliberate changes.
Okay.
And those changes aren't random. They're driven by looking at the enterprise's specific characteristics.
Yeah.
The guide calls these design factors.
Design factors. We'll definitely need to dig into those.
Oh, yeah. So it's a systematic modification process based on those factors. And again, the guide consistently uses the phrase, designing the governance system for enterprise INT. It emphasizes the design aspect.
So it's not just an afterthought. It's built into the effective use of COBIT. And the guide itself is structured to help with that design process. Chapter 1 lays out the publication's roadmap.
Exactly. It's structured very logically. Part 1, which includes the chapters we're covering, is all about the design process, the concepts, the workflow.
Okay.
Then Part 2 gets into execution and examples, practical stuff, case studies, even mentions a design toolkit.
Right. So theory and concepts first, then practical application. Makes sense. Who's the intended audience? Who really needs to understand this tailoring?
The guide points to professionals involved in e.g. enterprise governance of information and technology.
So executives, board members, CIOs.
Yes, that level. But also related roles, assurance folks, risk management, security professionals. Because INT governance touches all of those areas deeply.
Makes sense.
And of course, there's the standard disclaimer. It's educational, not a magic bullet. You need professional judgment based on your specific context.
That point about judgment is key, isn't it? It's not paint by numbers.
Not at all.
And connecting this back to you, the listener, especially if you're in one of those roles, why is understanding this tailoring process so critical? Why should you care?
It really comes down to that fundamental truth. Every enterprise is unique. Different industries, different pressures, different cultures, different digital maturity. You name it.
Right.
If you just try to slap a generic governance model onto that unique context, it probably won't work well. It might be too heavy in some places, too light in others.
Or just miss the mark on the real issues.
Exactly. It might fail to address your biggest INT risks, or worse, fail to help you achieve your strategic goals. Understanding tailoring is understanding how to make governance actually work for you.
So it becomes an enabler, not just a compliance burden or operational overhead.
That's the goal, making it relevant, focused, properly resourced for what your organization actually needs.
It's about creating a system that truly fits the enterprise, rather than trying to force the enterprise into a rigid box.
You've got it. Optimizing the framework for the enterprise's specific DNA.
Okay, this is where it starts getting really interesting. Before we can tailor, we need the raw materials, the actual pieces we're working with. Chapter 2, Basic Concepts, gets into these building blocks. What are the core models and components COBIT uses?
Right. Chapter 2 kicks off with a high-level view. Figure 2.1 is key here. It shows COBIT 2019 doesn't just stand alone. It builds on COBIT 5, its predecessor, but also, and this is important, it integrates insights from lots of other places, standards, frameworks, regulations, community input.
So it tries to play nice with others, like ITIL for service management, maybe ISO standards.
Exactly. The guide highlights its alignment with many related standards. That's part of why it can function as an umbrella INT governance framework.
An umbrella framework.
Interesting. And Figure 2.1 shows the flow visually. You have inputs, like those design factors we mentioned.
We'll get too soon.
Those influence how you use the COBIT core publications and specific focus areas.
Focus areas, like specialized guidance.
Yeah, for specific topics like security or risk. And all that comes together to help you design the tailored enterprise governance system for INT. It shows it as a dynamic system.
That visual helps connect the dots. And at the heart of it all is the COBIT core model itself, Figure 2.2.
Yes, the core model is the absolute foundation. It organizes everything into governance and management objectives, and it keeps that key distinction from COBIT 5, governance versus management.
Right, the EDM domain versus the others.
Exactly. Governance is just that one domain. EDM, evaluate, direct, and monitor. Management is covered by 4 domains: APO, BAI, DSS, and MEA.
Can you give us a bit more on what those domains are actually about? What's the difference in focus between EDM and, say, APO or DSS?
Sure. EDM is purely the governing body's turf. Board, exec committee, whatever it is. Their job is to evaluate the big picture strategy, risks, then direct management on what to do, and finally, monitor performance.
High-level oversight.
Totally. The objectives in EDM are about making sure the governance system itself works, benefits are delivered, risks and resources are optimized, and stakeholders are happy. Leadership stuff.
Okay. And below that, the management domains.
Right. First is APO align, plan, organize. This is where management takes that direction from EDM and turns it into actual plans and structures.
So strategy, architecture, budgets.
Exactly. Managing the INT framework, strategy, architecture, innovation, relationships, vendors, people, service agreements, costs, quality, data. It's all the planning and organizing work.
Got it. What about BAI?
BAI, build, acquire, implement.
Yeah.
This is about actually creating or getting INT solutions and putting them into the business.
So projects, development.
Yep. Managing programs, projects, requirements, building solutions, ensuring capacity, handling change, both organizational and technical, testing, deploying, managing configurations. It's the build its phase.
Okay. Then DSS.
DSS, deliver service support. This is the engine room, day-to-day operations and support.
Help desk, keeping the lights on.
Pretty much. Managing operations, handling service requests, incidents, problems, ensuring business continuity, managing security operations, and supporting business process controls. Keeping things running.
And the last one, MEA.
MEA, monitor, evaluate, assess. This is management overseeing itself, essentially, checking performance.
So monitoring how well APO, BAI, DSS are doing.
Basically, yes. Monitoring performance against goals, checking if internal controls are working, making sure you're complying with laws and regulations, and managing assurance activities like audits. It's the check and balance domain for management.
That breakdown is really helpful. So those 40 objectives across the 5 domains are the fundamental goals. But you said a governance system is more than just objectives. Chapter 2 talks about components.
Right. Section 2.3. This is key. A governance system isn't just processes. It's built from multiple interacting components. Think of it like building a car. You need an engine, wheels, steering, seats, different parts working together.
So what are these different types of components? It's definitely more than just processes, you said.
Oh yeah, much more. The guide lists 7 types. 1. Processes, the familiar one. Sets of practices, activities. like incident management.
Okay.
2, organizational structures, roles, responsibilities, reporting lines, steering committees, IT department structure, security teams, who does what?
Right. The people structure.
3, policies and procedures, the documented rules and guidelines, security policies, change management procedures, how things should be done.
The rule.
4, information items, the data needed, performance reports, risk registers, service catalogs, what you need to know to govern and manage.
Makes sense.
5, culture and behavior. This is a big one, often overlooked. The ethics, the mindset, the way people act. Is there a security-aware culture? Risk awareness.
How we do things around here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
6, skills and competencies. The knowledge and expertise people need. Technical skills, business understanding, risk assessment skills.
Do people know how to do their part?
Precisely. And finally, 7, services, infrastructure and applications. The actual technology itself, the stuff being governed and managed, the platforms, the apps, the network.
Wow, okay. That's comprehensive. It really drives home that governance is holistic. It touches everything.
It has to be effective. And the guide notes these components can be generic, like the standard descriptions in COBIT or variants, which are tailored versions for specific needs, often found in those focus areas we mentioned earlier.
Got it. Generic versus tailored components.
Yeah.
And for processes, the most familiar component, there's a way to measure how well they're actually working, the capability levels.
Yes. Figure 2.3 shows the scale from 0 to 5. It assesses process maturity or effectiveness.
Can you walk us through that scale quickly? What does each level mean?
Sure. Level 0, incomplete. Basically, it's not really happening or not meeting the basic intent, ad hoc at best.
Okay. Starting point.
Level 1,
Yeah.
performed. The process activities get done, they achieve the purpose, but it's inconsistent, maybe heroic efforts by individuals, not organized.
Doing it, but barely.
Level 2, managed. Big step up. It's planned, monitored, controlled. Basic activities are defined, measured. There's some organization.
It's getting structured.
Level 3, establish. Now it's a well-defined, documented process using standard organizational ways of working. Consistent, repeatable, usually considered the baseline for good.
The standard way.
Level 4, predictable. The process operates within defined limits. Performance is measured quantitatively. Results are predictable. Stable.
Consistent results.
Level 5, optimizing. The top level, continuously improving the process based on quantitative feedback, looking for innovations, always getting better.
So it's a maturity journey from not doing it to constantly improving it, useful for setting targets.
Exactly. You decide how mature a process needs to be based on its importance, which links back to those design factors.
Oh, okay, good connection. So we have the structure, domains, objectives, the pieces, components, and the measurement capability levels. Now let's get back to those design factors you mentioned. Chapter 2 introduces them properly.
Yes. Right after the building blocks, Figure 2.4 lists the 11 COBIT design factors. And these are absolutely central to tailoring. They're the enterprise characteristics that the guide says significantly influence governance design.
The things that make your company different from the next one.
Precisely. The internal and external variables.
Let's list them again. Enterprise strategy, enterprise goals, risk profile, INT-related issues, threat landscape, compliance requirements, role of IT, sourcing model for IT implementation methods, technology adoption strategy, and enterprise size. That's quite a list. We should probably touch on each one based on the guide's descriptions.
Definitely worth doing. They're the inputs to the whole design process. First, DF1, enterprise strategy, figure 2.5, what's the overall business direction? The guide gives archetypes. Growth acquisition, buying companies, expanding markets, innovation differentiation, new products, unique services, cost leadership, efficiency, low cost, and client service stability, reliability, quality.
And companies might focus on one or two, mainly.
Usually, yeah. A company focused on growth through M&A needs INT governance that handles integration, scaling. Very different from a cost leader focused on optimizing every penny.
Right. Strategy dictates INT needs. Makes sense.
Next, DF2. Enterprise goals, figure 2.6. How does that strategy translate into specific goals? COBIT uses 13 standard goals mapped to balanced scorecard areas.
Like increase market share or improve efficiency.
Things like that, yes. Stakeholder value, manage business risk, operational excellence. Your strategy dictates which of these are top priority. And those priorities then shape INT governance needs. If operational excellence is key, you need strong governance over operational processes.
The goals cascade down from strategy. Got it.
DF3. Risk profile, figure 2.7. This one's huge. What IT-related risks are you most concerned about? Which ones exceed your appetite for risk? Figure 2.7 lists 19 categories. Things like operational failures, cyber attacks, insider threats, non-compliance.
19 categories. That's specific.
And it is. It helps you pinpoint. If you're terrified of data breaches but okay with some project delays, your governance reflects that specific profile. You focus controls where the risk appetite is low.
Okay. Risk appetite drives focus.
DF4. INT-related issues. Figure 2.8. What are the current INT problems or pain points? Actual issues happening now.
Like IT in the business always fighting, projects always late.
Exactly. Or big security incidents, costs are too high, inflexible systems blocking new ideas, bad data quality. These issues tell you where your current governance is probably failing and where the new design needs to improve things urgently.
Learning from current pain. Good input.
DF5. Threat landscape, figure 2.9. This is about external threats, mostly cyber. Is it high or normal? A bank or critical infrastructure provider likely faces a high-threat landscape.
And that demands much stronger security governance.
Absolutely. More focus, higher capability targets for security processes compared to someone facing normal threats.
Okay.
DF6. Compliance requirements, figure 2.0. How many rules and regulations do you have to follow? Industry-specific, like HIPAA, PCI DSS, or geographic, like GDPR. Scaled high, normal, or low.
And high compliance means more governance around checking boxes, proving compliance.
Right. Robust processes for monitoring, reporting, assurance. MEA domain gets a workout.
Got it. Next.
DF7. Role of IT. Figure 2.11. How critical is IT to the business strategy and operations? 4 archetypes here. Support. IT is just a utility. Failure is annoying, but not fatal. Factory. Operations depend on IT. Failure stops things, but IT isn't driving strategy. Turnaround. IT is seen as key for future change, but not yet critical for current ops. And strategic. IT is fundamental to both current operations and future strategy.
That's a really insightful distinction. And the governance needs would be vastly different for support versus strategic IT.
Totally. Strategic IT needs governance focused on agility, innovation, business partnership. Support IT might focus more on cost control and basic reliability.
Makes perfect sense.
DF8, sourcing model for IT, figure 2.1. Where do you get your IT from? Mainly insourced, heavy outsourcing, lots of cloud, or a hybrid mix.
And each brings different challenges.
Absolutely. Governing outsourcers needs strong vendor management. Governing cloud needs focus on security, contracts, integration in a different way than governing your own data center.
Okay. Sourcing matters.
DF9, IT implementation methods. Figure 2.13. How do you build and deploy stuff? Agile, DevOps, traditional waterfall, hybrid.
And this changes the type of governance needed.
Fundamentally, DevOps needs governance that supports speed, automation, integrated security, very different from traditional stage gates and reviews.
Right. Governance has to match the delivery style.
DF10, technology adoption strategy, figure 2.14. How quick are you to jump on new tech? First mover, loves the cutting edge, takes risks. Follower, adopts proven tech. Slow adopter, waits till it's old news, very risk-averse.
And a first mover needs governance around experimenting, managing risks of new tech.
Exactly. Like AP over 4, managed innovation. A slow adopter might prioritize stability and proven processes over managing novelty.
Okay, almost there. Last one.
DS11, enterprise size, figure 2.15. Simply, are you large or small medium? SME. Size impacts complexity. Large firms need more formal structures, roles. SMEs need something more streamlined. The guide notes micro businesses under 50 staff are out of scope.
Wow. Okay, going through each of those 11 factors really makes it concrete. These aren't abstract ideas. They are the specific realities of your business, your context, your choices.
Exactly. They are the inputs that define what your governance system needs to look like and focus on.
You can't just apply the same blueprint to a fast-moving tech startup and a heavily regulated utility. The design factors force you to differentiate.
They provide the essential context. Without considering them, tailoring is meaningless. You're just guessing.
Okay, so we have the building blocks, domains, objectives, components, and we have the enterprise context, the 11 design factors. Chapter 3, Impact of Design Factors, connects these two pieces. It explains how the factors actually shape the governance system design. What's the mechanism?
Right. Chapter 3 clarifies that these design factors influence tailoring in specific ways. Figure 3.1 sums it up as 3 main types of impact.
3 types of impact. What are they?
The first, and maybe the most fundamental, is impact on management objective priority selection.
Priority selection, meaning some objectives become more important than others.
Precisely. Remember those 40 objectives in the core model. Generically, they're equal. But once you overlay your design factors, some jump out as being far more critical for you.
And if an objective is more important, what does that mean practically in the design?
It means you need to set higher target capability levels for the processes and components that support that objective. You need to perform those related activities much better, maybe aiming for level 3 or 4 instead of just level 1 or 2.
Can you give some examples from the guide? How does a specific factor drive up priority and capability?
Sure, the guide gives good ones. Take DF3. Risk profile. If your analysis shows a high risk related to security breaches,
Okay.
then objectives like EDMS3, risk optimization, APO12, managed risk, APO13, managed security, and DSSO5, managed security services, become super important. Your design must demand higher capability levels, maybe level 4 or 5, for the processes doing that security work. You need predictable, maybe even optimizing security.
Right. The risk dictates the need for excellence there.
Or take DF5, threat landscape. If it's high, that directly flags APO13 and DSSO5, the security management and operations objectives, as needing high capability.
Makes sense. Another example.
How about DF7, role of IT? If IT is strategic?
Like in a digital native company.
Right. Then objectives around aligning IT with business strategy, managing architecture, managing relationships become critical. APO02 strategy, APO03 architecture, APO8 relationships, maybe APO4 innovation. You need high capability in planning, integration, partnership.
So the design factors essentially act like filters, highlighting which of the 40 objectives need the most attention and the highest performance standards for your specific situation.
Exactly. And the guide mentions this can often be done somewhat quantitatively, using mappings or tools suggested later, linking factor values, like high threat, to objective priorities.
Okay, so first impact. Prioritizing objectives and setting capability targets. What's the second type? The second type of impact is on components variation. Design factors don't just prioritize objectives, they can also require specific changes to the governance system components themselves.
The components being those 7 types.
Ah.
Processes, structures, policies, info, culture, skills, tech.
Right. The core model provides generic descriptions, but your design factors might say, nope, that generic structure won't work for us, or we need a different kind of process here.
Can you give an example of component variation?
The guide uses DF11, enterprise size. For SMEs, the generic, complex committee structures in the core model might be overkill. An SME focus area, the guide suggests, would offer guidance on simplified roles and structures, a variation of the generic component.
So adapting the actual pieces of the system.
Yes, and you can imagine others. If your DF9 IT implementation method is DevOps, you need variant processes like integrated DevSecOps, maybe variant organizational structures, cross-functional teams, different skills, different information needs for monitoring.
It affects multiple component types.
It often does. A strategic role of IT, DF7, might demand changes in culture, more risk-taking, or new structures, innovation labs. The components themselves need tailoring, not just the objectives they serve.
Okay, so second impact is tailoring the actual components. What's the third?
The third type of impact is pointing towards specific focused areas. COBIT 2019 includes these supplementary guides for specific topics. Design factors tell you which, if any, of these you should probably use.
So if my factors scream security risk, I should grab the security focus area guide.
Exactly. That's the example the source uses. High risk profile, DF3, or high threat landscape, DF5, are strong indicators to use the information security focus area guidance.
And other factors might point elsewhere.
Right. A heavy cloud sourcing model, DF8, might point to a cloud focus area. Major digital initiatives driven by a strategic role of IT, DF7, might point to a digital transformation focus area. Lots of outsourcing might suggest a vendor management focus area.
So these focus areas are like prepackaged tailoring guidance for common scenarios, triggered by the design factors.
That's a great way to put it. They offer tailored component variants and objective priorities for specific situations identified through your design factor analysis.
Okay, so those 3 impacts: objective priority and capability, component variation, and focus area selection. That's how the design factors translate into a tailored governance system design, according to Chapter 3.
That's the core mechanism described. It shows the factors aren't just descriptive data points, they actively drive the design requirements.
And as the guide hints, Chapter 4 then details the actual workflow, the steps to apply this, calculate impacts, maybe use tools, and Chapter 7 shows practical examples.
Exactly. These first 3 chapters give you the essential why and what before you get to the how-to steps. You need this foundation first.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up. What does this all mean for someone trying to govern INT effectively? We've covered a lot from just these first 3 chapters.
We have. We've seen that tailoring isn't optional for effective governance. It's core.
We looked at the building blocks, the domains, the 40 objectives, those 7 crucial component types.
And the capability levels to measure process performance.
And then critically, those 11 design factors that capture your enterprise's unique reality.
And Chapter 3 showed us the 3 ways those factors make their impact felt. Prioritizing objectives and setting targets, demanding changes to the components themselves, and pointing you to relevant, specialized guidance in focus areas.
So understanding the core model is step 1, but analyzing your design factors and understanding how they impact the design via those 3 mechanisms, that's the key to moving from generic to tailored.
Absolutely. It's the bridge from theory to practice. It explains why you make certain design choices.
And for you, the listener, grasping these foundations really highlights why you can't just copy someone else's governance system or apply best practices without thinking.
Right. You have to analyze your strategy, your risks, your operating model, your tech environment.
And use that understanding to build something that genuinely fits and supports your business in your context.
It's the difference between an off-the-rack suit and bespoke one. One covers you, the other fits perfectly and lets you perform at your best.
Well put. Understanding these concepts equips you to understand the why behind the design steps that come later in the guide. So, to leave you with something to think about, reflecting on those 11 design factors, strategy, risk, role of IT, compliance, sourcing, tech adoption, and the rest. If you had to pick just one factor that you think has the biggest, most complex impact on designing INT governance in today's world, which one would it be and why?
That's a tough one.
And what are the potential pitfalls if an organization gets the analysis of that specific factor wrong during its governance design? Something to mull over.
A very relevant question. The interplay between these factors is complex but critical.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the foundations of the COVID 2019 Design Guide. We hope unpacking these first chapters has been insightful.
Thank you. Getting these first steps right is crucial for designing governance that truly adds value.
Indeed. We encourage you to explore the source material if you can. Until next time.